Today's story: my brother and ex-wife tried to destroy me and take my kids. I let them think they won. Then I ended both their lives, not literally. Know what's funny about trust? Not ha funny. More like staring at the ceiling at -3 a.m. wondering if you ever really knew anyone funny. The kind of funny that makes you understand why some people just vanish to start new lives in different countries under assumed names. My name is Marcus. I'm 40 years old. 2 years ago, I was 38, married to my high school sweetheart, running the family construction business with my younger brother, and raising 2 kids I love more than I understood it was possible to love anything. Today, I am divorced, sole owner of a company worth $4.02 million, have full custody of my children, and my brother is working at a Home Depot 3 states away under a cloud of professional disgrace so thick you could cut it with a knife. This is the story of how the 2 people I trusted most in the world decided to systematically destroy me, and how I returned to favor with interest, patience, and a level of strategic planning that would make a military general weep with pride. Buckle up. This one gets dark. Part 1. A Life Before. Let me paint you a picture of the before times so you understand what I lost, or thought I lost, or what they tried to take. However you want to frame it. I met Sarah when we were both 16. She was the girl who laughed at my terrible jokes and somehow made me feel like the funniest person alive. We got married at 24, which everyone said was too young, but we were convinced we had it all figured out. We had our son Jake at 26 and our daughter Emma at 28. My brother Tyler was 4 years younger than me, and growing up, he was my shadow. I taught him to drive. I helped him with homework. When our dad died suddenly when I was 25 and Tyler was 21, I stepped into the role without even thinking about it. Dad had owned Hartley Construction, a mid-sized commercial and residential firm that he'd built from nothing over 30 years. I inherited the business and brought Tyler on immediately after he finished college. We were brothers. We were supposed to be partners for life. By the time I was 38, Hartley Construction was doing incredibly well. We expanded into 3 counties, had 42 full-time employees, and were landing contracts that my father would have been proud of. Tyler ran operations and project management. I handled sales, client relationships, and finances. It worked. At least, I thought it worked. Sarah was a stay-at-home mom, which was her choice and one we'd made together. She'd worked as a teacher before Jake was born, but once the kids came, she wanted to be home with them. I supported that completely. I worked long hours, traveled for bids, missed some dinners and bedtimes, but I thought we were building something together. A life. A future. Security for our kids. Looking back now with the perfect clarity that comes from hindsight and betrayal, I can see the cracks forming. But at the time, I was blind. Willfully, stupidly blind. Part 2. The First Fracture. The first real warning sign came about 8 months before everything exploded. Sarah started acting different. Not dramatically different, just off. She was on her phone more. She'd laugh at texts and angle the screen away when I walked by. She started going to the gym a lot. Got her hair done more frequently. Bought new clothes. Now, I'm not one of those controlling husbands who thinks his wife needs to look like she just rolled out of bed forever. I was happy she was taking care of herself. But there was something about the way she'd look at me sometimes like she was measuring me against something, and I was coming up short. Then there was Tyler. He started making comments about the business that felt pointed. "Man, you really are married to this company, aren't you?" Or, "Must be nice to be the boss and just delegate everything." Or my personal favorite, "I do 90% of the actual work, but hey, your name's on the building." I laugh these off. Brothers bust each other's chops. That's what we do. But the comments got more frequent, more barbed. He started questioning my decisions in front of employees, suggesting I was out of touch, implying I didn't understand the ground level anymore. I should have paid more attention. I should have asked harder questions. I should have done a lot of things. Instead, I worked harder, thinking that if I just proved my value, If I landed bigger contracts, if I made the company more successful, everyone would be happy. Narrator voice, everyone would not be happy. Part 3, the Thursday. It was a Thursday in March when the first domino fell. I came home early from a client meeting that got cancelled last minute. It was 2 p.m., which was unusual. I was almost never home before 6. I pulled into the driveway and noticed Tyler's truck parked on the street. Weird, but not alarming. Maybe he needed to borrow something. The kids were at school. Sarah's car was in the garage. I walked in through the front door and heard voices upstairs. Sarah's voice. Tyler's voice. Coming from our bedroom. Now, let me be clear about what I thought in that moment. My first thought was not they're having an affair. My first thought was something like, why is Tyler in my bedroom, followed immediately by maybe something's wrong. I walked upstairs. The bedroom door was closed. I opened it. And there they were. I'm not going to describe what I saw in detail because even now, 2 years later, the memory makes me feel physically sick. But let's just say there was no ambiguity. There was no this isn't what it looks like. It was exactly what it looked like, and they were so absorbed in each other that they didn't even hear me open the door for a good 5 seconds. When they finally noticed me, Sarah screamed. Tyler scrambled backward off the bed, and I just stood there, frozen, my brain trying to process what my eyes were seeing but refusing to accept it. My wife, my brother, in my bed, in my house, while my children were at school. Tyler spoke first. Marcus, man, I held up my hand. I don't know why I did that instead of screaming or hitting him or burning the house down. But I held up my hand like a traffic cop and said, very quietly, get out. Marcus, let me explain. Sarah started. It hurt. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even raising my voice. I think this scared them more than if I'd lost it completely. Tyler grabbed his clothes and left. Sarah started crying, reaching for a robe, trying to talk to me. I walked out of the room, down the stairs, out the front door, got in my car, and drove. I drove for 3 hours. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, brain simultaneously racing and completely blank. When I finally stopped, I was parked at a rest area off the highway. I sat there as the sun went down and I made a decision. I was not going to explode. I was not going to make this easy for them. I was going to be smart. Part 4, the investigation. I called a divorce attorney before I even went home. Her name was Rachel Brennan, and she'd handled a friend's divorce a few years earlier. I reached her after hours, explained the situation in the most clinical terms I could manage, and asked for an emergency consultation the next morning. She agreed. Then I called a private investigator. Yes, really. His name was Derek. He was ex-military, and he specialized in domestic cases. I explained what I'd found and what I suspected, that this had been going on longer than one afternoon, and that I needed documentation for the divorce. Then, and only then, did I go home. Sarah was sitting on the couch, red-eyed, clutching a tissue. The kids were still at school. I timed my return for pick-up time so they wouldn't see whatever this conversation was going to be. Marcus, she started. I held up my hand again. I'm going to speak, and you're going to listen. I've already called a divorce attorney. I've already started documenting everything. What I walked in on today is grounds for fault divorce in this state, which means I have leverage you don't want me to use. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sleep in the guest room. You're going to act completely normal in front of the kids. You're going to give me access to everything, a phone, computer, bank accounts, all of it, and in exchange, I won't make this any uglier than it has to be. Do you understand? She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Marcus, it's not, it was a mistake. It just happened. How long? I asked. Silence. How long? 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year. While I was working to support our family. While I was trusting both of them completely. Guest room, I said. Now. She went. I picked up the kids from school, made them dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories, and tucked them in like it was any other Thursday. because for them it was, and I was going to keep it that way for as long as I possibly could. Part 5. What Derek found. The private investigator worked fast. Within 1 week, Derek had uncovered things that made the affair look almost quaint by comparison. First, the affair had been going on for 8 months, not 6. Sarah had lied about the timeline, which wasn't surprising but was useful for the divorce. Second, they weren't even being subtle. Hotel receipts, restaurants, a weekend trip they'd taken together while I was at a conference and the kids were at Sarah's mother's house. They'd told people different stories. Tyler said he was visiting friends. Sarah said she was at a spa retreat. They'd coordinated their lies. Third, and this is where it gets truly insane, Tyler had been systematically embezzling from the company for the past 14 months. I did not see that coming. Derek had recommended I also hire a forensic accountant to look at the business books, just to be thorough. The accountant, a woman named Linda Chen, who had the emotional range of a stone and the analytical skills of a supercomputer, found discrepancies almost immediately. Tyler had been creating fake vendor accounts, inflating material costs, billing for equipment that didn't exist, paying himself bonuses through a shell LLC. Over 14 months he'd stolen approximately $340,000 from Hartley Construction, my family's company, the business my father built. Tyler had been robbing it while I trusted him to run operations. When Linda presented her findings, I asked her to triple-check everything. She did. The numbers didn't change. Tyler had stolen more than $250,000 from us. But here is where the story goes from betrayal to something darker. Linda found something else. Tyler had been moving money into an account in Sarah's name. Not their joint account, Sarah's personal account that I didn't have access to. He'd been funneling stolen company money to my wife. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning something together. Something that involved systematically draining my business and consolidating money where I couldn't touch it. Part 6. The plan reveals itself. I did something I'm not proud of. I accessed Sarah's laptop while she was out with the kids one Saturday morning. I know an invasion of privacy, possibly illegal, definitely ethically questionable. I was past caring. Her email was open. I started reading. What I found made my blood run cold. There were emails between Sarah and Tyler going back 10 months. Dozens of them. And they weren't just love letters or logistics for sneaking around. They were planning to force me out of my own company. The plan, as I pieced it together from the emails, was brilliant in its cruelty. Step 1. Tyler would document everything I did wrong at the company. Every missed meeting, every decision that didn't work out, every time I delegated something he had to handle. He built a case that I was incompetent and coasting on my father's legacy. Step 2. Tyler would recruit key employees to his site, slowly turn them against me, make me look like an out-of-touch owner who didn't understand the business anymore. Step 3. Sarah would file for divorce citing my workaholic neglect and emotional absence. She'd go for primary custody of the kids, claiming I was never around and she was the stable parent. Step 4. During the divorce, Sarah's attorney would claim that I'd been mismanaging the family business and that Tyler was the real brains of the operation. They'd argue that my share should be reduced or that Tyler should buy me out at a lowball price because of my mismanagement. Step 5. Once I was out of the company and had limited custody of my kids, Tyler would take over Hartley Construction, rebrand it, and run it with Sarah's financial backing using the money he'd already stolen from me. Step 6. They'd get married, raise my kids together, live in my house which Sarah would get in the divorce settlement, run my company. Essentially, Tyler would take my entire life and just step into it. I read those emails 3 times. Then I took screenshots of everything. Then I copied the entire email archive to a secure cloud drive. Then I closed the laptop, walked downstairs, and made pancakes for my kids. They wanted to erase me. They wanted to take everything I'd built, everything I loved, and just replace me. Like I was a piece of furniture they were upgrading. I was done being nice. Part 7. Building the counterattack. Over the next 3 months, I assembled what I now think of as my team of legal assassins. Rachel Brennan, a divorce attorney, specialist in high-asset divorces with fault grounds. Linda Chen, forensic accountant who could testify as an expert witness about the embezzlement. Derek, a private investigator who documented everything. Thomas Okoye, business litigation attorney who specialized in partnership disputes and corporate fraud. Dr. Patricia Winters, a child psychologist who would evaluate family dynamics for the custody case. And then there was me, the guy who was apparently capable of a level of strategic patience I didn't know I had. I kept working at the company. I kept coming home to Sarah and the kids. I was polite, if cold, to Sarah. I played the role of a man who was hurt but trying to work it out. At the company, I acted oblivious to Tyler's scheming. But behind the scenes, I was documenting everything. Every conversation, every expense, every decision Tyler made. I wore a recording device to work legal in our state with single-party consent. I had cameras installed in my home office. I collected evidence the way some people collect stamps. Tyler, convinced that his plan was working, got bolder. He started openly criticizing me in front of employees. He went over my head on contracts. He even called a staff meeting without me and presented himself as the operational leader of the company. Perfect. All of it was perfect, because every bit of it demonstrated his disloyalty and was now documented. Sarah, meanwhile, had started setting up her divorce narrative. She told her friends I was never home. She told her mother I was emotionally distant. She started taking the kids to therapy, which actually backfired spectacularly, but I'll get to that. She was building her case for primary custody. Also perfect, because I was documenting all of it, and more importantly, I'd started building my own counter-narrative. I started leaving work early twice a week to have dinner with the kids. I volunteered at Jake's school. I coached Emma's soccer team. I took them to the park, helped with homework, had one-on-one time with each of them, and I documented all of it. Photos, videos, scheduling calendars showing I was present. When Sarah's attorney eventually argued I was an absent father, I had 3 months of evidence showing the opposite. The kids noticed the change. Jake, who was 12, asked me one day why I was suddenly around more. Because I realized I was missing too much, I told him, which was true. And because you're more important than any business meeting. He hugged me. It was the first moment in this entire nightmare that I felt like maybe, just maybe, something good would come from it. Part 8. The Triggers. I waited until I had absolutely everything I needed. Then I pulled the trigger on all of it in the same week. On Monday, I filed for divorce from Sarah, citing adultery with specific evidence attached. Fault divorce in our state means extremely limited alimony and significant advantages in asset division. On Tuesday, I filed a lawsuit against Tyler for embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and misappropriation of trade secrets. Thomas Okoye delivered it personally to the job site where Tyler was working. On Wednesday, I filed for an emergency restraining order barring Tyler from the company premises, company accounts, and company records. It was granted by 3 p.m. On Thursday, I had the company's board, which consisted of me, an outside advisor, and our company attorney, hold a vote to terminate Tyler's employment for cause. Unanimous. He was officially fired. On Friday, I filed for primary custody of Jake and Emma, with evidence of Sarah's affair, her conspiracy with Tyler, and documented proof of her attempting to alienate the children from me while pretending to reconcile. By Friday evening, both of their lives were on fire, and I was the one holding the matches. Part 9. The Fallout. Tyler called me approximately 40 times that first week. I blocked his number. He showed up at the house. I called the police and had him removed for violating the restraining order. He sent emails begging me to hear his side. There was no side I needed to hear. He's stolen from our family business and conspired to take everything from me. There was no explanation that made that okay. Sarah tried a different approach. She went full victim mode. She told everyone who would listen that I was a controlling, vindictive husband who was punishing her for one mistake. She went to our friends, our church, her family, spinning a story about how I was destroying her life. What she didn't know was that I'd already had quiet conversations with the people who mattered. I'd shown them evidence, not everything, just enough. I'd let them come to their own conclusions. Most of our real friends believed me. A few bought Sarah's story. I cut the latter group loose without a second thought. The legal battles took 8 months. During that time, the embezzlement case, Tyler tried to claim the money was bonuses he'd earned and that I'd approved them. Linda Chen's forensic analysis demolished the argument in about 4 minutes of testimony. The fake vendor accounts were indefensible. Tyler's own emails discussing moving money where Marcus can't find it were the final nail. He settled to avoid criminal charges. He paid back $340,000 plus interest and legal fees, signed over his ownership stake in Hartley Construction for $1, and signed a comprehensive non-compete barring him from the construction industry in our state for 10 years. The divorce. Sarah's attorney tried to argue that my sudden attention to the kids was performative and manipulative. Dr. Winters, the child psychologist, had evaluated all of us by that point. Her report noted that the children had actually become happier and more secure during the separation, that they had strong bonds with me, and that Sarah's narrative about me being an absent father was contradicted by both the children's statements and documented evidence. Sarah got weekend visitation, no alimony due to adultery, and a minimal asset split. I kept the house, the kids, and the vast majority of our marital assets. The custody case, I won primary custody. Jake and Emma live with me. Sarah has them every other weekend and alternating holidays. The kids were initially upset about their divorce, but once the truth came out in age-appropriate ways, via the family therapist, they understood. Jake, especially, was furious with Sarah and Tyler. Emma was just confused and hurt. They're both in therapy, and they're doing better. Part 10, The Aftermath. Tyler left the state. Last I heard, he's working at a Home Depot in Tennessee, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, still paying off the settlement. His reputation in our industry was destroyed so thoroughly that he couldn't get hired at a competitor within 500 miles. People talk. Word spreads. Everyone knows he embezzled from his own brother's family business. Sarah is living in a small apartment across town. She got remarried about a year after the divorce finalized, and not to Tyler, which I found darkly funny. To some guy she met online. I don't know much about him, and I don't care. The kids see her on scheduled weekends, and our communication is strictly through a co-parenting app. She tried to get custody modified once, claiming I was alienating the children. The judge read her motion, reviewed the evidence, and denied it without a hearing. As for me, I rebuilt Hartley Construction stronger than before. I promoted 2 senior project managers to leadership positions, restructured the company, and implemented financial controls that would catch any future embezzlement in about 3 seconds. The company's revenue is up 34% year over year. I'm working less than I did during my marriage, ironically, because I'm not compensating for Tyler's incompetence or trying to escape a dying relationship. I bought a new house smaller than the old one, but it's entirely mine, and the kids love it. We have pizza movie nights on Fridays. I coach Emma's soccer team. I help Jake with his homework. I'm dating someone, casually, though I am in no rush. Her name's Olivia, she's a landscape architect, and she has no connection to my old life whatsoever, which is exactly what I need. The kids are doing well. Therapy helped. Time helped. The fact that I'm present and consistent helped. Jake's in 8th grade now and thinking about high school. Emma's in 5th grade and obsessed with art. They're good kids. They're resilient. They're going to be fine. Part 11, The Lesson. You know what the strangest part of all of this is? I don't hate them anymore. I did, obviously. For a long time. A kind of white-hot rage that makes you understand why revenge is such a compelling narrative arc in basically every human culture. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to lose everything. I wanted them to understand, viscerally, what they tried to do to me. And I got that. They did suffer. They did lose everything. The plan they'd spent almost a year building collapsed in less than a week because I played the long game better than they did. But somewhere in the process of rebuilding my life, the anger just dissipated. It became irrelevant. They're not part of my life anymore. They don't get space in my head. I don't check up on them. I don't care what they're doing. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't destruction. It's irrelevance. I have my kids. I have my business. I have my self-respect. I have a life I genuinely enjoy living. They took their shot at me. They missed. And now they're just footnotes in the story of how I became the person I am now. If there's a lesson here, and I think there is, it's this: when someone betrays you, your first instinct is to burn everything down immediately. To scream, to lash out, to make them feel what you're feeling. Don't. Take a breath. Document everything. Build your case. Be strategic. Be patient. Be smarter than they are. And when you finally pull the trigger, do it so thoroughly that there's no second act for them. No comeback story. Just consequences that follow them for the rest of their lives. I didn't just win the divorce and the custody battle and the embezzlement case. I won the war. And then I moved on. Epilogue, the message. About 6 months ago, Tyler sent me a letter. An actual physical letter, forwarded through his attorney because he was still barred from contacting me directly. It was long, meandering, full of apologies and explanations and justifications that contradicted each other. The core message was that he'd been jealous. That I'd always been the favorite son, the successful one, the one Dad was proud of. That Sarah had made him feel valued in a way he hadn't felt in years. That the embezzlement started small and spiraled out of control. That he never meant for things to go as far as they did. That he was sorry. I read it once. Then I put it through the shredder without responding. Because here's the thing, his jealousy, his insecurity, his justifications, none of it matters. He made choices. Sarah made choices. They chose to betray me, to conspire against me, to try to erase me from my own life. And I chose to stop them. The difference is my choices were legal, ethical, and devastatingly effective. Theirs were just devastating. To anyone out there who's going through something similar, and God, I hope you're not, but if you are, you're going to want to react immediately. You're going to want to confront, to explode, to make them hurt the way you're hurting. I'm telling you, from the other side of it, wait. Document. Plan. Build your case. Be smarter than your rage. And when you're ready, when you have everything you need, end them so completely that they never see it coming. Then take your life back and live it better than you ever did before. That's not revenge. That's justice. And it tastes pretty damn sweet. Update 6 months later. A lot of people asked what happened with the business and whether Tyler tried to retaliate. The business is thriving. I ended up winning 3 major contracts in the past 6 months, including a municipal project that's the largest in company history. The team is solid. Morale is good. Turns out when you remove a toxic, dishonest person from leadership, everyone else flourishes. Who knew? Tyler did try to retaliate, sort of. He filed a countersuit claiming I'd forced him out unfairly and damaged his reputation. His lawyer withdrew from the case after about 6 weeks once he realized how much documented evidence I had. The suit was dismissed with prejudice, and Tyler had to pay my legal fees. Again. Sarah tried to reconnect with the kids more aggressively about 4 months ago. She wanted to do family therapy with all of us together. I let my attorney handle it. The answer was no. The kids see her on the court-ordered schedule. That's sufficient. Jake made the high school basketball team. Emma won an art competition. I'm dating Olivia more seriously now, and she met the kids last month. It went well. We're taking it slow, but I'm optimistic in a way I haven't been in years. Life is good. Really, genuinely good. And the best part? I built this life entirely on my own terms, with people who actually value me, in a home that's mine, with kids who know their father will always protect them. Tyler and Sarah tried to take my life. Instead, they just freed me to build a better one.